Hello, my lovely morbid friends. How are you today? So, I'm back at it with another true crime case. If this is your first time here, my name is Liz Austin, and I am the host of Creating Crime Time. Now, what we do on this channel is I create art and talk about a true crime story at the same time. Now, if you want to hear more, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn your notification bell to all, and sit back and let's get into another true crime case. Well, today is one that I found, and I was like, this sounds a lot like another case that is very popular. Have you ever heard of the Menendez Brothers? Well, this one is joyous. So this is the story of two young men that brutally killed their parents. It sounds like the Menendez Brothers, right? Well, this happened in Rochester, New Hampshire. I am talking about the murders of Vance and Eve Dingman. And this crime happened in 1996. Well, when I found this case, I was like, why have I never heard of this? Now, I was 6. Well, I was 5 when this happened, but still. If it's so close and correlates with the Menendez brothers, you think that they would talk about this case too. And what I found very interesting about it is because there's one brother that wants it to happen, and then the other one is emotionally attached to the older brother but just wants to go along with it. Basically, full-fledged resembles the Menendez brothers. I lost I lost it when I found this. I was like, why haven't I heard about this? Why haven't I heard about this? And then I found more crimes in Rochester. I'm like, what is going on? And if you've noticed, I tend to stay in New England for crimes. I'm working on my way out. The previous story before this was a dual state one. So, we're moving outwards. We'll get there. So, the perpetrators in this case are Robert and Jeffrey Dingman. Now, Robert is 18, who took the lead. And he persuaded Jeffrey was 15 at the time, to help him obtain his .22 caliber gun from the cabinet that was normally locked. Well, just like the Menendez brothers, prosecutors in this case said that the two sons wanted freedom and money, and they presented testimony that Robert Dingman's friends, as well as his brother's chilling account of these shootings. Now, his father worked as an electrician. Well, their father. And their mother was a customer service rep at a fabric plant. They left an estate that was a little bit more than $200,000, so a nice chunk of change. So prosecution believed that, they believed that these boys, all they wanted was the money, just like with the Menendez brothers, and that they decided to work together to rid their life of their parents to get what they want. Well, as we know, this world is nothing what we see, what we read, and nothing is ever what we seem. So, during this whole investigation and the trial, the younger brother, Jeffrey, changed his story multiple times. And how do I put this? Because he was the younger brother that was persuaded, he was an easier target for them to try and flip on the older brother. There was no physical evidence that showed that Robert was the one that fired the murder weapon. And the only thing that really tied him to it is that he helped clean up after Jeffrey fired the gun, fired all the fatal shots. And when this was talked about during trial, it basically said that Robert doesn't equate to that of murder, since he only helped with cleanup. Well, it's still aiding and abetting, but still. Because the brothers had two different defense lawyers because of the way that this worked. So, Robert's defense lawyer, Carolyn Smith, brought up multiple times that Robert wasn't involved because there was no physical evidence, and that Jeffrey was unreliable and incredible. Like, he didn't have any credibility to what he was saying because he kept flip-flopping back and forth. With that being said, when they went after Jeffrey's point in court, she said that he lied in exchange for a lesser sentence, which Jeffrey was the smoking gun in the case, which, like I said, because he's younger and easily persuaded, it was easier for them to flip him on his brother, which is what happened with the Menendez brothers. One flipped on the other. So this also still asserted that he changed his story multiple times, and she went on to say that he acted alone and he hid the truth. So with his brother Robert, he didn't testify. He was looking at life in prison with no parole. And he ended up being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. His brother Jeffrey pled guilty and could be paroled in 18 years and his sentence would be reviewed after 12 if he agreed to testify. That's where the lesser sentencing came in. So what Jeffrey described is that both of them were home, and he described shooting his father at 4:30 on February 9th, 1996. And this is on the staircase, like in the staircase of their house. He said he only felt a slight regret after he fired the first shot. He said his father looked at him and then said, "I can't believe my own son did this." Like, I mean, if I did that to my parents, they'd probably do the same thing, but still. After he heard his father saying that, it bothered him, and he just felt that it hurt, and it wasn't what he said. Like, he wasn't expecting what his dad was going to say. Then Robert grabbed the gun, stood over his dad, and he said, "How about another one?" He shot him. Jeffrey said Robert shot their father again. When his arms moved, they tried to fit him into a plastic garbage bag. Now, just a few minutes later, their mother returned home from work. Jeffrey said she was yelling about the loudness of the stereo, which they turned up to drown out the gunshots as a great sound barrier. He said he fired at her 3 times in the living room, and Robert followed suit, yelling at her as he fired the final shot at her head. Now, after their slayings, their father's body was dragged to the attic, and their mother's body was put in the basement. Then after that, the boys worked together to clean the house. After that, Jeffrey said he had some Doritos and went out to play basketball with a friend, and then Robert peeled off his rubber gloves and went to see his girlfriend like nothing had ever happened. Now, in an effort to prove that it was premeditated, the prosecution called a friend of Robert's up to the stand, who he said he repeatedly discussed killing his parents and boasted that if jail is the life, I could kill my parents, take some money, go to jail, have 3 squares a day, lift weights, and play basketball. That he could just do nothing. And after the death of his parents, Robert told his girlfriend his curfew was no longer an issue. And then he paid $225 in cash for a new CD player And this was all presented as evidence for his guilt. Prosecution continued to point out that Robert's finger and palm prints were on duct tape and plastic garbage bags that wrapped up his father's body, and it was also found on a box of rubber gloves and a can of disinfectant from when they cleaned up. His prints were also on a key on the gun cabinet, and the key, along with $600 in cash, were found in Robert's dresser. Now, within the final arguments, prosecution stated he hated his parents and he acted on that hatred. After final arguments, the jurors deliberated. So 3 hours that day, and then they resumed deliberation the following day, which that was a Friday. Now, obviously, I've already said that this is very comparable to the 1989 murders with Eric and Lyle Menendez, because both brothers were sentenced to life for murdering their parents to get their money. Literally sounds just like it, because all Robert wanted to do was have 4 squares a day, play basketball, sit in jail. All right. So, let's get a little bit into Jeffrey. With Jeffrey, before his plea, his lawyers were going to use the defense of battered child syndrome. Now, if you don't know what that is, obviously similar to the Menendez brothers using battered child syndrome. Jeffrey testified that his father sometimes punched him multiple times in the chest when he got bad grades, and he once hit Robert in the face. Now, this was just to try and prove that they could use that defense of battered child syndrome. Obviously, since he was the more empathetic child, he was the younger, very persuaded child, he would take it more to heart. So, along with the comparisons of the Menendez case with Jeffrey, he turned on his brother to lessen the sentence for himself. With talking about when their parents died, so him shooting at his father first, nothing really adds up. If you're trying to prove the point that you're a battered child, why are you shooting your dad first when he did not provoke anything? Same thing with their mom. A lot of this case doesn't really add up, which is why I also feel that it's very similar to the Menendez brothers, because nothing made sense with them either. So the night before the murders happened, Robert said that Jeffrey could shoot their father, but he wanted to shoot their mother to watch the look on her face. That they were discussing it the day before, so there is premeditation right there, along with their motive for the money. So since these shootings happened on a Friday, the boys told their friends that their parents had gone on a spur-of-the-moment vacation. They were away. They weren't near. But since their parents were reliable workers, when they didn't show up to work on Monday, co-workers called the police. And when the police showed up to the house, this is when Robert allowed police to search the home. Eventually, they would find the bodies of the parents. Now, with these two, obviously Robert received life in prison. He would receive life in prison if convicted, and his brother only received 18 years, which I find very, very interesting that the brother only received that short amount of time. I mean, obviously he flipped on him, but sometimes they would put it as like second-degree murder and they'd still get like 40 plus years. I don't know. What I also wanted to bring up is that, so earlier this year, Robert Dingman appeared in Supreme Court, New Hampshire Supreme Court. And this was to look at overturning a new sentence that was handed down in 2018. What he asked is to appeal his case to bring it back to the trial court level so that it wasn't at a Supreme Court level. And this would result him being sentenced for a third time since he was convicted of killing his parents. So he's sentenced 2 different times already. So originally he was sentenced to life without parole after he was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder in 1997. He was then resentenced to 2 consecutive 20 years to life sentences in Stratford County Superior Court in October 2018. This was after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 2012 it was unconstitutional to sentence juveniles to life without parole. Basically, he wanted to try and lessen his sentence again. That's what he wanted to do, and to bring it down into a lower court circuit. Arguments were made shortly after the court heard about the case of Eduardo Lopez Jr. He was very similar to Robert, where Lopez was resentenced for homicide he committed as a teenager in Nashua in 1991. His attorney wrote a brief with the court saying that he'll on January 14th, that trial court erred in Dingman's case because his new sentence is a de facto life sentence, and reiterating the case Dingman's public defenders made in the 2018 sentencing. The defense will also question whether the sentence is an abuse of discretion, as well as whether the trial court erred in a way that is considered evidence, legal precedents, and legal analysis through how it decided the sentence. So basically, what he's trying to do is, because of time served in jail, so he's been in jail since 1996. It's currently 2021, so I mean, let's see, that's 10, 20, 25 years in prison he's been in jail, so he should be up for parole. Now, because of when he wants to be resentenced, and because of how the sentencing happened in 2018, so the sentence that was given in 2018 was upheld in Supreme Court, and Dingman would be 57 when his term concludes. So the defense sought after a 25-year sentence in 2018, which would have allowed him to leave prison early in 2021 at the age of 42 due to time served. So, my camera died, and I didn't realize my camera died. So, we were talking about the Dingman Brothers, and we were talking about the older brother, Robert. Well, Robert was seeking a way to basically lessen his sentence because of the rule that when you are sentenced as a minor or as a juvenile, you can't receive life in prison without parole. And that's what he received. He received 2 of them. So basically what him and his lawyer sought to do in 2018 was to lessen his sentence. They were seeking 20 years, like 20 years in total. That way he already has time served, so he would be eligible for parole. Well, the state was seeking, I believe it was 50 years for each count. What ended up happening is that he received 2 20 years to life sentences to take place of his life in prison without parole. So he won't be eligible for parole until 2035. And now, I've already mentioned that his brother's already out. He was released in 2013, and their family advocated so strongly for Robert to try and help him get out early. And it's really sad to see all the effort that his family went through to help him to get an early release, and it kind of just backfired a little bit. They weren't able to help him as much as he needed. And my hope is that he truly has been rehabilitated. The same thing with his brother, which is, I mean, that's the true purpose of a sentence in being jailed, is that you are able to be rehabilitated and released at the end of your sentence back into society, hopefully as a changed person. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tale of the Dingman Brothers and literally how like crazy similar it is to the Menendez Brothers. The Menendez Brothers are a little bit different because they're still in jail, but it was fascinating to read like how close they were story-wise with money and murder of parents. But anywho, my little tangents. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Turn your notification bell on to all. Don't forget to head over to Instagram. My handle is Create Crime Time, and then on TikTok I'm Create Crime Time. So don't forget to follow me on all channels. I'll also have them, I'll pop them on the screens here and there. But anywho, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye, you guys.